Hello and welcome to the 21st edition of the GreenWave podcast by Synergy International. I'm SYNI, your host, and today's topic is the MENA region's emergence as a global leader in sustainable energy production. Yes, the Middle East and North Africa, once known mainly for oil, is fast becoming a powerhouse of renewable energy and green innovation. It's a fascinating and unexpected story, full of big ambitions, mega projects, and even a few geopolitical twists. So sit back and join me as we dive into how MENA is reinventing itself for the clean energy era. Globally, we're in the midst of a major energy transition away from fossil fuels. For decades, Middle East energy meant oil and gas. But here in 2025, that narrative is changing. Across MENA, governments are pouring investment into solar farms, wind parks, and even green hydrogen production. They've recognized that sunlight and wind might just be the new oil. Not literally, of course, but as key resources to power the future. In short, MENA is positioning itself to lead the global clean energy boom, not just participate in it. Why is this a big deal? For one, the region's natural advantages are tremendous. The desert sun is intense and plentiful, and certain areas boast strong wind resources. And thanks to technological progress, the economic case for tapping those resources has never been better. Solar power costs have plummeted, and MENA countries have seized on that. In fact, some of the world's cheapest electricity now comes from Middle Eastern solar projects. We've seen record-breaking bids in the UAE and Saudi Arabia offering solar energy at around 1 cent per kilowatt hour, almost unbelievably cheap. That kind of pricing makes solar not just the green option, but the smart economic one too, outcompeting even the most efficient fossil fuel plants on cost. When you can generate electricity cheaper than the price of bottled water, you know a paradigm shift is underway. The stage is set, and MENA's leaders see the writing on the wall. Diversify or get left behind. They know global demand for oil may eventually level off or decline as the world goes greener. So they're determined to ride this green wave, rather than be swept away by it. In the past few years, solar panels and wind turbines have been sprouting across the region's landscapes at an unprecedented rate. The region's installed renewable energy capacity, which was negligible not long ago, has surged to tens of gigawatts and is climbing fast. By the end of 2024, it reached roughly 30 gigawatts, and ambitious plans could push that far higher by 2030, potentially into three-digit gigawatt territory. That represents one of the fastest build-outs of renewables anywhere. It's not just small pilot projects anymore. We're talking giant solar parks and sprawling wind farms that are changing the skyline of the desert and the seashore. Let's zoom in on a few key players, starting with Saudi Arabia. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the world's traditional oil giant, so its pivot to renewable energy is especially striking. Under the Vision 2030 strategic plan, Saudi Arabia has set a goal to get 50% of its electricity from renewable sources by 2030. That's a huge shift in a short time. To make it happen, they're investing in an array of mega projects on the order of tens of gigawatts of new capacity. In practical terms, that means blanketing vast stretches of desert with solar panels and lining windy areas with turbines. Some of these efforts have already made headlines. Saudi Arabia managed to secure solar power bids at around 1 US cent per kilowatt hour, essentially setting world records for low-cost electricity. It turns out that intense sun plus large scale plus cheap financing is a winning formula. Crucially, Saudi Arabia isn't just planning to use all that clean power at home, it also has export ambitions. The idea is that just as Saudi once shipped crude oil to the world, in the future it could ship clean energy, either as electrons or as molecules. How? One big avenue is green hydrogen. The kingdom is building what might be the largest green hydrogen facility on the planet at its futuristic NEOM City project on the Red Sea coast. This project, backed by a $5 billion investment, will use roughly 4 gigawatts of solar and wind energy to produce hydrogen by splitting water. The hydrogen will then be converted into ammonia for easier shipping. If all goes according to plan, within a few years, Saudi Arabia will be exporting millions of tons of green ammonia annually to energy-hungry markets in Europe and Asia. In effect, they'll be exporting sunshine, just in a different chemical packaging. It's a bold bet on a green future, and it underlines the country's determination to remain a global energy leader, this time in sustainable energy. Making such a dramatic shift isn't just about building shiny new facilities. It also involves developing new expertise and infrastructure. Saudi Arabia has been partnering with experienced international firms from the West and also from China and elsewhere to get projects off the ground and to start local manufacturing of renewable tech components. And then there's the technical challenge of integrating renewables into the grid. Solar power floods in during the day, nothing at night. Wind can be intermittent. To tackle this, Saudi is investing in energy storage and smart grid management. They're testing big battery systems and even exploring advanced technologies like flow batteries that can handle the heat. They're also employing sophisticated forecasting tools, yes, even artificial intelligence, to predict solar and wind output and manage the grid in real time. It's a striking pivot. The country, long known for stabilizing oil markets, now has teams working on how to stabilize a grid with lots of solar and wind. The learning curve is steep, but they're climbing it fast. Next, let's talk about the United Arab Emirates, another heavyweight in this story, albeit one with a head start. The United Arab Emirates, especially Abu Dhabi and Dubai, began its renewable energy journey earlier than most of its neighbours. Abu Dhabi's Masdar initiative, launched in the 2000s, was a pioneering move that raised a lot of eyebrows at the time. An oil-rich emirate investing billions in solar, wind, and even a planned zero-carbon city. Fast forward to today, and the UAE's early bet is paying off. The country's installed renewable capacity has grown from virtually nothing a decade ago to several gigawatts now, mostly solar. And it's on an upward trajectory, set to roughly triple within the next few years. The flagship project is the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park in Dubai, which is slated to reach 5 gigawatt capacity by 2030. Already, this solar park has several stages operating, including both photovoltaic panels and concentrated solar power units, with massive mirrors and a solar tower that can even generate power after sunset using stored heat. Over in Abu Dhabi, there's the Al Dhafra Solar Project, about 2 gigawatts of PV, which when completed will rank among the largest single-site solar farms in the world. It also achieved one of those ultra-low tariffs, around 1.3 cents per kilowatt-hour, showcasing that the UAE can play the low-cost solar game as well as anyone. Beyond solar, the UAE has pursued other clean energy avenues. It built the Barakah nuclear power plant, the first nuclear power station in the Arab world, now gradually coming online to provide steady, carbon-free electricity. And it has been upgrading its grid and exploring storage to handle more renewable input. Policy-wise, the UAE has set some of the most ambitious targets in the region. For example, Dubai aims for 75% of its energy to be from clean sources by 2050, and nationwide the UAE has committed to a goal of net zero emissions by 2050, the first country in OPEC to make such a pledge. Hosting the UN's COP28 Climate Summit in 2023 was both a statement and a test for the UAE. In a twist of fate only the 21st century could concoct, the person presiding over that climate conference was Sultan Al Jaber, simultaneously the CEO of Abu Dhabi's oil company and the founder of Masdar, the renewables firm. Talk about wearing two hats. Yet, If anyone embodies the region's balancing act between oil heritage and green future, it's him and the UAE at large. The UAE is also making moves to ensure it isn't left behind in the emerging hydrogen economy. It unveiled a national hydrogen strategy, aiming to be a top producer and exporter of low-carbon hydrogen by the 2030s. Abu Dhabi's state energy companies are already producing test batches of blue ammonia, derived from natural gas with carbon capture, and planning larger facilities, while also experimenting with green hydrogen made from solar power on a pilot scale. They've signed partnership agreements with countries like Germany and Japan to eventually supply them with clean hydrogen or its derivatives. One day, in the not-too-distant future, we might see ships from the Gulf streaming through the Strait of Hormuz, carrying not crude oil, but tanks of green ammonia bound for Europe or Asia. The notion would have sounded far-fetched a decade ago, but today it fits right into the new energy playbook. Now let's head west to Morocco, because the North African side of MENA has its own green success story. Morocco has emerged as a regional renewable energy leader, in large part because it had to. It lacks the abundant oil and gas of the Gulf, so it turned to what it does have: plenty of sun and wind. Years ago, Morocco set a target to get more than half of its electricity from renewables by 2030, and it's making steady progress towards that. The country has built some of the world's most iconic clean energy projects. The Noor Ouarzazate complex, for example, is a gigantic solar farm on the edge of the Sahara, featuring both solar PV and concentrated solar power technologies. Those rows and rows of mirrors focusing sunlight that have caught the attention of many a journalist and analyst. Morocco has also installed wind farms, particularly along its Atlantic coast and up in the mountain ranges, tapping into very strong wind regimes. Thanks to these investments, Morocco has greatly reduced its reliance on imported energy and even become an electricity exporter at times. And we recently saw a dramatic illustration of Morocco's role in regional energy stability. As many of you experienced, in late April, a massive blackout struck the Iberian Peninsula. Spain, Portugal, and even parts of France went dark in an unprecedented grid collapse, an event known as the Great Iberian Blackout. In just a few seconds, Spain lost a huge chunk of its power generation, causing a cascading failure. While European grid operators were scrambling to diagnose and fix the problem, Morocco immediately stepped up to assist. It has 2 high-voltage submarine power cables under the Strait of Gibraltar, linking its grid with Spain's. At Spain's urgent request, Morocco began transmitting up to about 900 megawatts of electricity through those cables, effectively helping to jumpstart Spain's grid recovery. This infusion of power helped re-energize critical systems and sped up the restoration of electricity to Spanish cities. The Spanish Prime Minister even went on air to thank Morocco for the crucial support. This incident turned heads around the world. Here was a North African nation riding to the rescue of Western Europe's grid, a reversal of the usual narrative. But it was no accident. It was the result of foresight and investment. Morocco had spent the last 2 decades building more generation capacity than it needed at home and interconnecting with its neighbours. In doing so, it positioned itself as a sort of renewable energy linchpin between Europe and Africa. The Iberian blackout of 2025 showcased how that strategy paid off. It was a clear example of energy diplomacy. Morocco earned goodwill and influence not by traditional means of power, but by literally providing power when it was needed. The episode also underscored the importance of cross-border grids and cooperation as more renewables come online. After all, if the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing in one area, it might be in another. But you need the cables and agreements in place to share that energy. Europe, having gotten a boost from Morocco, is undoubtedly taking notes. Plans for additional interconnectors linking North Africa to Europe to import green energy under normal conditions and provide backup in emergencies now have a strong, real-world case behind them. Before we wrap up, we should touch on a notable intersection of this energy story with global tech and politics. In early 2025, the United States, under the Trump administration, announced plans to help establish a supersized AI development center with sites in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. At first glance, that news is about technology and geopolitics, but underneath, it's also about energy. Why place a gigantic, power-hungry cluster of AI supercomputers in the deserts of the Gulf? Because that's where abundant, affordable energy is increasingly available. Modern AI facilities consume colossal amounts of electricity. Think of warehouse-sized data centers running day and night. Saudi Arabia and the UAE can offer not only the cheap land and capital for such projects, but crucially, cheap power. And they are keen to make that power green to boot. Essentially, this move is a 21st century twist on the old partnership that once revolved around oil. Now, it's about partnering on high tech, powered by renewable energy. As part of the US Gulf collaboration, Saudi's futuristic Neom city is slated to host a massive AI and data campus designed to run on renewable electricity from its new solar and wind plants. The UAE too is attracting data center investments with an emphasis on clean energy supply. It's a symbiotic setup. The Gulf states diversify into tech and get external validation and jobs for their knowledge economy. The US and its companies get strategic footholds in a region eager to fuel AI growth, literally and figuratively. And it all ties back to the theme that reliable, large-scale energy infrastructure, now increasingly sustainable, is key to unlocking the industries of the future. Looking forward, the outlook for MENA's role in sustainable energy is extremely promising. In fact, bright might be the perfect word. The next decade will likely see the region's renewable capacity multiply several times over. We can expect many more solar plants and wind farms to come online from the Atlantic coast of Morocco to the Arabian Gulf. By 2030, some MENA countries could be at or near majority renewable electricity domestically if they hit their targets. And the region will be a prime exporter of green energy, whether through high-voltage cables sending solar power across the Mediterranean or via ships carrying hydrogen-rich fuels to global markets. Europe's clean energy transition, for one, may depend in part on importing green electrons or molecules from MENA's sunny and windy expanses. Countries like Germany are already inking memoranda to buy green hydrogen from the Gulf and North Africa. In Asia, Japan and South Korea are eyeing the same suppliers. MENA's competitive position in this emerging global market is strong. Few places on Earth can rival its combination of resource quality, that intense sun, available land, and financial heft to invest. That's not to say it will be all smooth sailing. There are challenges ahead. Integrating renewables at such scale will test grids, requiring significant upgrades, regional coordination, and storage solutions to handle variability. There's also a race against time to train the workforce and build the local industrial base for this new energy economy. And, of course, these countries must juggle this transition while managing the legacy energy sector, oil and gas, which still brings in revenue needed to fund the new investments. However, we've seen encouraging signs that the region is taking these challenges seriously. The Iberian blackout response was a proof of concept for grid cooperation. Massive battery projects are being planned in several countries to store solar energy after dark. Even discussions about using old oil and gas infrastructure, repurposing pipelines to carry hydrogen, for example, are on the table. All told, it's remarkable how fast the sands are shifting. The Middle East and North Africa are carving out a new identity as champions of sustainable energy. Not long ago, it would have sounded like a fantasy. Solar farms in Saudi Arabia outshining some European countries' installations, or North African wind lights keeping Europe out of the dark. But that's the reality unfolding now. If current trends continue, MENA will not only achieve its own renewable energy goals, it will also play a pivotal role in the world's broader climate goals by supplying clean power at scale. In the global race for leadership in the energy transition, the MENA region has moved from the periphery to the forefront. Well, that's a wrap on our 21st GreenWave podcast episode. We appreciate you sharing your time. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Podchaser, Boomplay, and Player FM, so feel free to follow the pod and share with friends. We'd love if you would leave a review as we grow the podcast. And thank you if you've already left us a 5-star rating. If you have missed any of our LinkedIn posts or the GreenWave Gazette, you can always catch us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, Instagram, or visit synergy-international.net. We'll keep reflecting on the trends shaping sustainable finance and global policy. Until next time, keep riding the green wave of sustainability. Stay inspired and keep advocating for a healthier planet, one global region at a time.